Good evening, ladies and gents. We are cats and dolls. Step right up and mind your hats, cause tonight we're tuning in the dial to a frequency thick with mystery and mischief. The air is buzzing like a jazz horn at midnight, and I've got tales lined up slicker than a speakeasy floor after a last call. So grab a chair, pour yourself a little moonshine for the soul, and let's waltz together into the shadows where stories come alive. The mic's hot, the night's young, and the broadcast, well, it's just getting started. Now we are returning to the world of the cryptid unknown. All the cryptids from around the world. We have two decently long ones, and one still from the SCP world, which that is just in case if these two long ones don't last through the time frame we have for tonight. So let's just jump right into it. Now the first story we're starting off with is Bigfoot. Is a story about Bigfoot. Of course, this doesn't actually have a name under it. It does have a story title, which is not someone name-wise, not that I'm seeing so far. It is called The Night the Woods Went Silent, a Bigfoot Encounter First-Hand Account. I grew up with stories of Bigfoot like most kids who lived near the mountains. Hunters whispered about tracks that they couldn't explain. Hikers swore they'd been followed in the woods by something just beyond sight. My uncle used to joke that the forest was owned by something older than people. As a kid, I laughed it off, but then I turned 23. It was late autumn 2019. I had taken a short contract job out near the Cascade Range in Washington. Logging roads crisscrossed the mountains, so old they barely existed anymore. My job was straightforward. Survey abandoned sites where structures were collapsing, mark them down, and move on. A week in the wilderness, just me, a backpack, and a GPS. I'd done summer work before, and I wasn't afraid of being alone in the woods. On my second day, I came across the first set of tracks. The ground was soft from rain earlier in the week, and in a muddy patch near a stream, I found depressions that didn't match anything I knew. At first, they looked human, but far too big. Each print was nearly 18 inches long with toes spread wide like a barefoot runner. The stride length was impossible, almost 4 feet from heel to heel. I crouched down, snapping a photo with my phone, and set my boot beside one. My foot looked like a child's in comparison. I told myself it was probably a hoax. People carve fake feet and stomp around all the time, but the depth of the prints, they sank a good 2 inches into the mud, deeper than mine even when I jumped. Whatever made them was heavy. The strange thing was how fresh they looked. The rain had just had fallen the night before, yet these weren't filled with water. That night I set up camp near a clearing. Normally forests are alive at night. Crickets, owls, the distant rustles of deer moving through brush. But as the sun dipped below the ridge, everything went quiet. It wasn't gradual. One moment I heard frogs croaking by the stream. The next, nothing. Not a chirp, not a flutter of wings. Just silence so heavy it pressed on my ears. Something sitting by my little camp stove, the hairs on my arms prickling. My instinct screamed that something was watching me. I shone my flashlight at the tree line, but there was nothing there. Only a thick black between the pines. I forced myself to eat, then zipped into my tent. Sleep didn't come easy. Every snap of a twig outside jolted me awake around 2 a.m. or so. Then I heard the footprints. They weren't fast, not like a deer bolting. They were slow. Crunch, pause, crunch. They circled the camp once, then stopped just outside my tent. I held my breath, clutching the handle of my knife, heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. And then came the smell, rotten, musky, like wet fur mixed with spoiled meat. It was strong enough to make my stomach churn. I didn't move, and I didn't breathe. The steps lingered outside for what felt like hours. Then they slowly faded back into the woods. By morning, I told myself I'd imagine it. Sleep deprivation can play tricks, right? But when I stepped outside, my stomach dropped. Beside the fire pit were prints. Massive. Barefoot impressions pressed deep into the soil. They led from the tree line straight to my tent. One print was no more than a foot away from where my head had been resting. I packed fast that morning, convincing myself it was time to finish the survey and head back to base. But the deeper I went into the forest, the more I found. Twisted branches, stripped of bark 8 feet up, as though something had clawed them. Rocks stacked in strange formations. At one point I came across a deer carcass. It hadn't been eaten clean like a predator's kill. Instead, it looked torn apart, ribs cracked wide, legs bent at unnatural angles. What unsettled me most was the head. It was gone, ripped clean from the body. I kept telling myself mountain lions could do that. Bears could do that. Anything but what I feared. That afternoon, as I hiked toward the last waypoint, I saw it. Movement. About 50 yards ahead. At first I thought it was a tree trunk swaying in the wind, but then it stepped forward. It was massive, easily 8 feet tall, shoulders as broad as a door frame, covered in dark, matted hair. Its arms were long, almost reaching its knees, and its head was turned directly at me. I froze, half hidden behind a cluster of ferns. My brain screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The thing that stood there, staring. I couldn't see its eyes clearly, but I felt them. It tilted its head, almost out of curiosity. Then it let out a sound I'll never forget. A low, guttural growl that rattled through my chest. And then it moved. It turned and walked back into the trees, each step slow. I should have turned back, and I should have gone straight back to my truck and never returned. But some stupid primal curiosity pushed me to follow. I trailed it for half a mile, keeping low, moving as quietly as I could. I caught a glimpse of it between the trees. Its back, the swing of its arms. Then I lost it. woods grew dense, and the silence returned. My skin crawled. I knew I wasn't one doing the following anymore. I turned into a slow circle, scanning the tree line. Nothing happened, nothing. Then a snap behind me. I whipped around, but all I saw was shadow. Another crack to my left this time. It was circling me. I bolted, crashing through undergrowth, branches whipping at my face. My GPS beeped wildly as I scrambled off course, but I didn't care. I just needed to get out. The thing followed. I didn't see it, but I could hear it. Thunder steps pacing me, not too far behind me. Always just out of sight. At one point, a massive branch came crashing down just feet from me, torn from a tree and hurled like a spear. I ran until my lungs burned. Eventually, I burst into an old logging road, heart hammering, legs trembling. The sound stopped. The forest was silent again. I made it back to my truck by nightfall, shaking so hard I could barely start the engine. The whole drive back to town, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something crouched in the truck bed. When I turned in my report, I left out the details. No mention of shadows in trees, no mention of smell, the prints, the creature itself, just survey complete, terrain unstable, recommend closure. But I still kept the photos, and I kept the memories of it. And I can't shake the feeling that let me live for a reason, though. Sometimes at night, when the wind dies and the world goes still, I swear I hear footprints outside my window. Well, that's the end of that. That was pretty interesting, I have to admit. Though it seems so far most of these Bigfoot stories have had the same repeat to some degree, where it stalks. It doesn't actually do anything besides just stalk around. I think if I recall, there was one story a while back that actually tried to do some harm, but never really got anywhere. But still interesting. Might need a little bit more next time around. But I still enjoy it. Alright. The next one is another alien sighting, which is just called the Visitors in the Field. Now, one more thing before I can go on, though. These sightings, stories, sights, whatever you want to call them, it makes me wonder a few things. And I know not everybody's making it up, but uh-oh, hold on, I got a little gremlin stuck. It's okay. There you go. Sorry, my little gremlin next beside me got her claw stuck into her little plaything. Anyways, I don't remember what I was saying, just that I guess some of these just kind of make me question the authenticity. Anyways, on to the next story for tonight. I never believed in aliens. I'd read the stories, watched the documentaries with creepy synthesized narrators. Okay, hold on before I continue. I do like some of the narrators in those, so don't dish the narrators. And the fuzzy pictures of lights in the sky. And I'd laugh at people on late night radio shows, swearing they'd been abducted. At least I haven't done that yet. It was entertainment, nothing more. I was grounded, rational. A man who trusted what could be touched, measured, and seen. But everything changed one night. It was late summer when it happened. The air was heavy with humidity, the cicadas screaming so loudly it seemed they might burst from the trees. My buddy, Kyle, had invited me to his family's farm just outside a small town in Pennsylvania. He said we'd drink a couple beers, sit under the stars, and escape the noise of city life. The farm was old, over a century of weathered wood and rustling machinery. The corn stretched tall, blocking most of the wind, leaving the air almost suffocating at times. We'd set up a lawn chairs by the edge of the field, facing out toward a patch of open grass where the night sky spilled unbroken across the horizon. We had no neighbors for miles. No street lamps. No headlights. Just us, the insects, and the overwhelming quiet of rural America. I remember thinking how big the stars looked. They seemed closer than I'd ever seen them before. That's when the first light appeared. At first I thought it was just a plane. A single point of white light moving smoothly across the stars. But then I noticed it wasn't blinking. Not like how planes always have that blinking light. Kyle, I said, nudging him. Check this out. He squinted up to the sky. Yeah, probably just a satellite. I wanted to believe that, but then the thing slowed. That's the part that made my stomach knot. Satellites don't slow down, and they don't stop. But this one did. It hung there, still. And then impossibly it began to grow brighter. The glow swelled, bleeding in the night around it, until it looked like a miniature sun suspended above the cornfield. I could see Kyle's face in the glow, pale and twisted in disbelief. What the hell is that? He whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the light was descending. Came down fast, much faster than I thought something that big could move. One moment it was high in the sky, the next it was dipping low, hovering maybe 100 feet above the field. The air vibrated with a deep hum, low enough to rattle my chest. My beard trembled in my hands, tiny ripples dancing on the liquid surface. We both stood up, our chairs creaking in the stillness. The object was no longer just a light, its shape became clear. A smooth, metallic disc. Not the cheap sci-fi saucers from old movies, but something seamless, polished. Light circled its edges in a patterns that didn't blink or flash that pulsed in rhythmic waves. That's the only way I could describe it, even though it had no windows. Kyle muttered, "We need to go," but my legs wouldn't move. The hum deepened, almost like the earth itself was groaning. Then came another sound, higher, sharper, like metallic being pulled across glass. It slid into my skull, bypassing my ears entirely, vibrating straight through my brain. I stumbled, clutching my head, but the sound didn't stop. Images spilled into my mind, flashes of stars, strange constellations, places I'd never seen before, a barren desert of red sand, oceans boiling under black skies, towers of lights rising into the clouds. couldn't breathe. And then, just as it started, it stopped. The bottom of the craft opened, not with a metallic clank, not with hydraulics or steam, but with a silent shift. A ramp extended downward, glowing faintly, and something began to emerge. They were tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that seemed too long, too thin, as though their skeletons were just skeletons. Their skin shimmered faintly, pale gray that rippled with hints of blue. When the light hit it, they had no mouths, at least none I could see, but their eyes, if you can call them eyes, were these large black bottomless pools that seemed to stretch forever. One of them tilted its head toward me, and I heard it. Not with my ears, but in my mind. Do not run. My knees buckled. I dropped into the grass, gasping for air. Kyle, though. Kyle ran. He bolted straight into the farmhouse, his sneakers pounding the dirt, arms pumping desperately. For a moment, I thought he might make it. Then one of the beings raised a hand, and a beam of light shot out and warped around Kyle. He froze midair, suspended, his body trembling like a puppet in invisible strings. I tried to crawl toward him, my fingers digging into the dirt, but my limbs wouldn't obey. The hum from the craft pressed down on me, pinning me to the earth. I could only watch as they pulled Kyle back across the grass, up the glowing ramp and into the belly of the ship. And then they turned their attention back to me. The tallest of them stepped closer. His movements weren't quite right. It was like gravity didn't apply to them very well. When it stopped only a few feet away, I could feel waves of heat rolling off its body, as though the air around us was still. It reached out one long, thin finger and pressed it gently against my forehead. The world vanished. I was floating, not in the sky, not in water, but somewhere beyond everything I knew. Colors I'd never seen before flared around me. My body wasn't mine anymore. It was dissolving, breaking apart into light. And then came the voices. Not one, many, thousands. They weren't speaking words, not really, but somehow I understood. Fragments of meaning hit me all at once. You are small. You are fragile. I tried to ask, but I didn't have a mouth anymore, and my thoughts scattered like sand in the wind. And then I saw Kyle. He was suspended in a chamber of light, his body limp, his face frozen in terror. He was suspended. Oh wait, no. Strange patterns danced across his skin like shadows of veins glowing beneath the surface. Machines, or maybe organisms, I couldn't tell, were moving around him, shifting in and out of focus, like he wasn't dead, but he wasn't alive either. I woke up in the cornfield. The sun was rising, the air damped with dew. My head throbbed, my body stiff. The craft was gone. No scorch marks, no footprints. No evidence that anything had happened at all. Except Kyle. He was gone. I stumbled back to the farmhouse, calling his name until my throat went raw. But there was nothing. His car was still there. His phone, his wallet, everything. Just no Kyle. When police arrived later that day, they wrote it off as a missing persons case. They questioned me, of course, but what was I supposed to say? The aliens had taken him? They'd locked me up in a psych ward, which I would agree on that sometimes. Back then I would've. So I lied. I said he'd gone out for a walk. He'd gone out walking and never came back. It's been 3 years. I still live in the city. The hum still echoes in my dreams, shaking me awake in the middle of the night. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'll see a flash of light on the horizon. And I'll remember Kyle, frozen in that chamber of light. I don't know why they let me go, and I don't know why they wanted him. But I know one thing was absolute certainty. They'll be back one day. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year. But they will come again. Now, that's the end of that story, and all I have to say was that actually was pretty creepy because that actually seemed to be one of our stories that I've actually read so far that actually had a, outcome of some sort. And it was an abduction one, too. I think that's the first abduction one we've had yet. I could be wrong, and I just don't remember. But that was a very interesting one. It actually gave me chills this time around. I quite enjoyed that. But from the way my crew is gesturing to me and the time, it is the end of tonight's broadcast. That's the last note of tonight's tune. The lights are dimming. The stories have danced their last step. And this old broadcast is closing up shop till next time. Keep your chins up, your spirits high, and remember, every shadow's just a stage, a light waiting for its cue. Till we meet again on these airwaves, I tip my hat and bid you a swell good night. Sleep tight, darlings, and may your dreams swing sweet.